Maybe try a different background. What do you think? Tigers? Greetings, Dr. Canu. Can you hear me okay? Hello? Hello, Dr. Canu. Hello. Okay, we don't start for a while. So. Yeah. Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Yeah, you didn't see anything because you were in the waiting room.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure how the app works, but thanks.
Yeah. Well, what it does, it puts the person's name there, and you could either let them in or
Oh,
keep them out, whatever.
yeah.
And you can have we haven't really made too much headway with this platform. We're getting there, but you can have up to 100 panelists.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
impressive.
like a conference. That's like being in an auditorium,
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
And
Pretty impressive.
I don't. It's be interesting. The most we've had maybe is 40 or 50 one night, but nothing near that close since. Because I think the audience will get to know the program.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a mystery to most people, and they're kind of shy, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So how you been? How's Peter?
He's doing great. He's busy most of the days.
Okay. Now, I talked to Peter briefly about his app a while ago. But is he doing informatics still?
From what I understand, he's still doing research, but he has been quite busy these last couple of days with
Okay.
and things like
I
that.
think before I think he was doing it in the area of informatics. So, as a matter of fact, he gave one of those talks on TED. You know, TED, those talks.
TED Talks, yeah.
He gave a talk that was a while back on informatics. And that's when I wrote to him when I first met him.
Yeah.
So you're in Maastricht with two A's.
I'm in Maastricht right now, yeah, in Holland.
Okay. That's the name of the hospital complex.
The city is called Maastricht.
Oh, okay.
It's a very southern city, and the hospital is called Maastricht University Medical Center, which is a
Okay.
long. So usually they just call it MUMC.
Is that a pretty big city in the Netherlands, or sizable city?
Size-wise, at all,
Yeah.
actually. No, it's not a very big city,
Oh,
but it is one of the more prominent cities, like a very vacational city. So a lot of people in the north of Holland come down to Maastricht to enjoy the pretty sights. There's a lot of
okay.
going around
Is
here.
it because of the hospital complex that it's famous?
Yeah, for one, it is very famous because of the hospital complex.
It's more than just, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, right? It's a big metropolitan hospital.
Yeah, there's a lot of research going on here. The university is quite famous as well in Holland because
Oh, okay. University section. Okay.
not only does a lot of people from Holland end up traveling all the way down here to study here, but also a lot of international students come.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's something Maastricht kind of prides itself on, is that there's a lot of international students.
Oh, really?
Basically, if you've ever seen Holland, it's like a triangle, right?
Uh-huh.
And then there's all the way in the bottom, that part, that's Maastricht.
Let me get a map. I'm curious. We got a few minutes here. Let me get a map real quick. Because I may be coming over, I am coming over in September to Portugal.
Yeah.
And, you know, Europe is so different than the United States. It's small.
Yeah, it is very small.
And I could go from Rome to Amsterdam, man. Oh man, it's like going in Florida. It's going to the capital city in Florida.
Yeah, I know. It is a very small.
Yeah, it's easy to get. It seems like the trains are good, I guess. I haven't really traveled much there. Okay. Okay, I want a. Okay. I'll share the screen here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, Holland looks basically like a giant triangle in my opinion.
Right.
Right.
Amsterdam's at the top, huh?
Yeah. How do I? Yeah, I was looking. Yeah, so Amsterdam's all the way up there, and if you scroll downwards, down, 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 even more, and then you see the border of Holland.
Over here.
Yeah, keep going down. Keep going down.
Oh, there we go. Wow, it's pretty far actually.
Yeah, like I said, it's all the way down there at the edge of the border, and one side of the country is basically Belgium. The other
okay.
Germans.
And the other side's another one.
Yeah,
oh, it's a little indentation that goes down there.
Yeah, and then you have basically Germany on one side and Belgium on the other side. So you have basically.
Oh, okay, now here's Germany, right over here.
That's Germany, yeah.
And here's the border.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you can basically bike to Belgium every now and then.
Okay. Now the main language there is Dutch.
Yeah,
okay.
But they do have their own dialect in Maastricht.
Okay.
Peter speaks it much better than I do.
The part German or the dialect?
Yeah, it's a German / Dutch dialect. Basically, if you speak German, you can understand the dialect.
Yeah.
But I don't really speak it that well.
Well, here in Miami, hello, there's John, right?
Oh, another John.
Hi, John.
Hi, John. Hi, Saiyd.
Hello, John. Second John.
You've used Zoom before, right? You look comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is it popular in Europe?
I mean, I'm in Canada right now.
Oh, really? You're in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's where Jason's from, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're together, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. My family's from Saskatchewan.
Oh.
You walk cold out there, man.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Oh man, you don't know cold till you've been to the plains of Canada.
Oh my gosh.
So the wind, the wind in the winter, because of it's flat.
Yeah.
You know, Saskatchewan is flat. Manitoba's half flat and half. Alberta's half flat. Man, oh man. But it was very tolerable as a kid. As a kid, it was great because they have a lot of outdoor rinks there.
Okay.
And on Toronto, they do too. I don't know if they still do, but back a long time ago, they had outdoor rinks, and they were great. As a kid, to be able to skate all day, that was fantastic.
Yeah, they still do have them in Toronto, but there's a lot of course, buildings and stuff taking over. But there are public parks with those skating rinks. Unfortunately, I can't skate.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I just watch people.
Yeah. Well, we grew up skating because my parents are from Canada, and they moved down to the States, but they were always Canadian. They used to sing the "Oh Canada" all the time.
Oh, nice.
We got to know it pretty young.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
And they were just absolute hockey nuts. I mean,
Wow.
they were, to them, it was more than a sport. It was a religion.
I mean, even that is still up to now. That's really what you
Still the
divide.
same?
Yeah, it's still the same. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah, like other sports are coming in, but they will not take over hockey.
No, I know that lacrosse is considered the national sport, but I mean, everyone, that's not really true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here in Toronto, just because of this week, the last few weeks, because of the NBA, so everybody is feeling so hyped.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're in the playoffs, right?
Oh yeah, they won
They won the whole thing?
Yeah.
You're kidding?
Yeah, they won the NBA. The
Wow,
first time.
that's how much I know about basketball.
Yeah, the first time somebody from outside the US, the States, won the NBA.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, is that no, that's not Jason, right?
No, that's not Jason.
That's not Jason.
Okay, well, they're welcome. Hello.
Hello.
I don't know. I invited the neurosurgeon. Let me check with this one neurosurgeon. I really like him to come.
Okay.
Let me check something real quick.
But all this is going to be recorded. He's going to be live too, so people will be watching.
So people can also join in with their cameras.
Yeah, you give anyone that link. I sent the link out, and people, they don't realize, I don't think, how easy it is. But anyone can join. Really, they get that link on Facebook. We have people that try it. We might have some people come in, but
yeah, I also posted it on my Facebook, so I think these are some students that might be joining.
Yeah, it's I posted a lot of places. And yeah, Saturday is a good day. Saturday and Sunday. During the week, I notice a big difference in the number of people that come because everyone's working and they can't really get away.
Yeah.
But you can access it on your smartphone pretty effectively. And well, I think a form of conference will evolve just on smartphone. You could have a smartphone conference.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of doing it. Just a smartphone conference. It obviously won't be as detailed or as long. Maybe a short, maybe make up a word, webnet or whatever. Another educational tool. So you're from Indonesia.
Yeah, partially, basically. I'm not.
Wow, that's such a colorful country.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm half Indonesian actually. My other half is the other side of the other side of the planet. I'm from Curacao. I don't know if you know where that is.
Where?
Curacao.
Yeah, of course. It's in the Caribbean. It's a Dutch island, right, in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And it's half. Is it half one side, one and half another? Is that the island split?
Well, that's one of the other islands. No, Curacao is just it used to be one of the colonies from Holland, and then now it's just an island. Still part of the Dutch kingdom, but they're doing their own thing.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, kind of independent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I don't know if that's considered a tax haven. where people
Yeah, a lot of people.
they hide their money there, right?
There's a lot of that going on. But honestly, I'm not very known about the whole economic system of the island.
Well, I knew a little bit about it in the Bahamas. Bahamas are an island very close to Florida. And of course, everyone tried to put offshore accounts there. And the way they did it is they would open up a credit card account in the Bahamas, thinking that all the money they spent would not go through the U.S. But the U.S. went to the Bahamas and said, we want all the names of people that have credit card accounts that are American. And Visa said, no, I can't do that. They said, oh, you can't? Well, we're going to shut down Visa in the Bahamas. So they gave them all the names of people that were hiding money. I'm sure there's a lot of people who got in trouble. Here's Jason. And people no longer do that in the Bahamas anymore. Okay, I guess, well, hey, Jason. How you doing? Let me unmute you there. Your microphone works all right, right? You're a veteran of these. How you been, Jason?
Pretty well, thank you, John. How are you today?
Good, good, good. Yeah. Let me see if Marco. Okay. Just excuse me for a minute. I want to check on somebody. Let's see. I'm calling him on the other computer on Facebook. Hey, are you going to come in? I'll send you the link. Okay. Okay. I'll send you the link. Yeah, Ipe is there. Let me send them a link. Hold on, just give me a second. Okay, we'll wait a minute or two for yeah, as you know, Saiyd, it's hard to predict the schedule of a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
Hello, Marco. Oh, good. We have a neurosurgeon here.
Hey guys, how are you?
Thanks for coming, Marco.
Oh, thank you too.
Yeah, I'm glad a neurosurgeon came to give a little. I'm not a neurosurgeon, so it's good.
Well,
to
the topic quite seems interesting.
Oh yeah, it's a great topic. It's a hot topic, right, Saiyd?
Yeah, it is indeed a topic that's been coming up, especially in the last
years. In
years.
Neurosurgery, right? Or I guess in all areas. Does Maastricht do it in other areas besides neurosurgery?
That's a very good question, actually. If I recall correctly, I think they were doing some research in plastic surgery as well.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Okay, to visualize changes.
Yeah.
Of proposed cosmetic surgery.
Yeah, but I'll probably come back to that in a bit later about what the applications of augmented reality is. I do have a little presentation.
Yeah, let me see if I come in. Let's wait a second. Hello, Janar. Let me just see. Hello, Janar. Hi, I'm John Bennett. Who are you guys?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's a bit noisy in our room right now, so I hope it's not too disturbing.
Okay, well, welcome. If you have any questions or comments, let us know. And we're going to introduce everyone before we start. We haven't started yet, but I'm going to start in a second. I guess we'll start, Saiyd. I may join us later, okay? Let me just start taping, okay? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning from Miami Beach. This is Dr. John Bennett, broadcasting Neurosurgical TV, another episode of current Neurosurgical News. We have the pleasure of having Saiyd Sinlae, a master student from the Netherlands, who is going to give a presentation on virtual reality and augmented reality in neurosurgery. First, let's meet the panel before we turn it over to Saiyd. Hello, John. Are you there? Still there, John? I guess John must have skipped away. Hello, Jason. Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead, Jason. Can we hear you? Go ahead.
Hi, John. Nice to see you.
Okay, could you identify where you work and stuff and what you do?
Hi, John. So I currently work with a company, a startup that John Okello and I created. It's called BioIntelDoc. And we focus in building applications utilizing computer vision. And we are working towards identifying biomarkers in real time across non-invasive sites. And we push out to extended reality interfaces.
Very good. We'll hear more about that. Hello, John.
Hi, I'm John Okello. Just like Jason just said, we work together and we have our startup BioIntelDoc, BioIntelDoc.com that we are building together on mainly AI and as well as other biomarkers, including including genomics.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome. Okay, Janar, I'm sorry, I don't know the names. Could you please introduce yourself and tell what you do? Go ahead, Janar. I can't hear you. You're muted. I can't unmute you. I don't know why. Okay, well, maybe we'll come back. Okay, Marco, could you please introduce yourself?
Of course. Nice to meet you, everybody. My name is Marco Meloni. I'm a consultant neurosurgeon in Gravedona, North Italy.
You're welcome. A frequent participant too. And Tan May, can you hear me okay, Tan May?
Hi.
Go ahead, Tan May.
Hi, John.
Yeah, could you please introduce yourself and say hello?
Hi, I'm Tanmay from India. I'm final year neurosurgery PG.
Okay, welcome, a neurosurgeon from India. Okay, Saiyd, welcome. Thank you for coming, and it's all yours.
Hi, yeah, my name is Saiyd. I'm a master's student in Maastricht University, and I study medicine. At the moment, I'm doing my clinical internship in neurosurgery, and I also did a research internship along with Dr. Kubben, who's also a neurosurgeon in Maastricht. And we were doing some research on augmented reality. And I have a presentation here that I would like to show.
Okay.
Trying to figure that out. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, went back. Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Cool. So we were debating on a bunch of different topics actually for a research internship. And one of my favorite things about medicine is how you can incorporate different types of technology and how that can help or affect and maybe alter the way we do medicine in our regular way of doing it. So neurosurgery is a specialism that requires a lot of imaging, and usually that's in the form of CTs and MRIs. And over the years, there's been a lot of different types of viewing methods of MRIs and CTs, from watching it in 2D, using it on a screen, to making 3D models from these scans. either using complex programs on the computer and then making them into models so that we can look more detailed into these scans. Now, what I found interesting was the way we view these scans, because we're still looking at a 3D model on a screen, which is still 2D. And one of the methods that came about a long time ago was using stereoscopic glasses to basically show us two images at the same time, and the glasses would turn that into one three-dimensional image. There were some applications of this in medicine, but that required a special screen or a special beamer, and then you'd have to wear the glasses, and it was a bit not practical, because at the same time we would have these scans, but you still need a mouse and keyboard or some sort of controller to control these scans. So in operations, this wasn't the best thing to use, in our opinion. After that, there was a surge in virtual reality devices, especially since the 2000s. And this was basically a device you wear on your face, and then it would project the screen in front of your eyes. So the reality around you, your surroundings and environments, you wouldn't be able to see them anymore, but the device would project a completely virtual environment around you, which would be handy. And for example, you could place some objects in there, or for games and things like that. You can really think of a lot of different applications for this. But again, in an operation itself, it would be, I think, best that you can look at your own patients instead of looking at the screen in front of your eyes. So this wasn't a very good idea either. So the idea of augmented reality came about pretty quickly after that. Everybody knows what this is?
No, anybody? Those virtual reality glasses.
No, these are some old toys. From back when I was a kid, you could wear these, and then you would put like this little disc inside of it.
Oh, okay.
And then you would turn this little lever thing, and the disc would turn. So basically,
oh, right, like a kaleidoscope thing.
Yeah, basically you could still see your surroundings, but this would project an image on your surroundings. That's actually what augmented reality is. Nowadays, we use our phones most often, and a lot of games are using applications like augmented reality. And I don't know if most of you know Pokemon Go, but that's a pretty famous game since, I think, 2016. And you can play it without augmented reality, but one of the more fun aspects of the game is that you can see the Pokemon or the little creature you're trying to catch in your environments by using the camera, and it would put the object, or the Pokemon in this case, inside of your surroundings. And with new phones that are coming out, there are more specific forms of surrounding or environmental detection. For example, back in 2016, when the game just came out, it would just basically be like these glasses where you would have the image right there, and when you turn around, it would just stay in front of you. But nowadays, your phone would be able to scan the surroundings, like this is a table, this is a floor, this is a wall, and it would project the image onto it, so that even when you're walking around, the image you would see would still be stuck on the outer world, so the real world object. Since then, actually, since about 4 years now, there's been a lot of different types of smart devices coming out, from smart watches to smartphones to smart fridges. Even now, you even have microwaves that can tell you the calendar and go on the internet. And obviously, there's been also a bunch of smart glasses that came out. And one of the ones that really spoke to us was the one from Microsoft. Here we see 4 different other ones. These are all, well, other than the Vuzix, these are all about $200 or less. So they're pretty budget friendly and accessible to everybody. You can just buy them from Amazon. But what these would do was they would connect to your phone, and then as you're walking around or doing your daily life, you can see notifications pop up in your peripheral vision. And the HoloLens from Microsoft did this slightly differently. So instead of being connected to a phone or a laptop or something like that, it would have its own processor or chip inside of it. So you could just use the device as a standalone device on its own. And back when me and Peter, Dr. Kubben, did experiments on it, was about 2 years ago when the HoloLens more or less came into public hands, as it were. And at that point, there wasn't a lot of applications you could do. There weren't that many apps going on and people developing apps. And I myself, I'm just a medical student, so I don't really know how to program or do any of these complex app designs. So what we did was we wanted to do some research into what is the state of augmented reality hardware and software right now, and if that has a application in operative or possibly educational settings. And we wanted to see how fast medical students, residents, and specialists can be like, okay, this is a new device. I want to see how to use it, because we all know how to use a keyboard and mouse. I just wanted to see how fast can someone like a specialist or a medical student learn how to use a completely different navigational system. So checking the learning curve, and we wanted to see how it would work in an operative setting. So we ended up going for the HoloLens, which is a device from Microsoft, as I said. We tested it on 27 people from our hospital using time tasks and questionnaires. And from software point of view, we used basically free software just to keep it as budget friendly as possible. We used 3D slicer and an Autodesk converter. We grabbed some CTs and we turned them into holograms, basically, using this converter. And then what you ended up with these images that I have here. Maybe for next seminar, I'll actually bring the device and maybe live stream it so you guys can see more or less what I see, which is because showing it like this is not doing the device very justice. But in any case, you can kind of see that I tried, you can make a device, a hologram from the scan. And here we see a CT from a skull that has been operated using DBS. On the first image on the left, you can just see the skull floating in midair, as it were. But as you move your head towards it, you can actually go inside of the skull and see how the leads go down inside of it, which is pretty fun to do. And on the right, we also, that's basically how the software looks. So you can put programs and windows everywhere and just click on it with your hands. There is no mouse, no controller, no anything. You just use your hands to move everything. So we tested it out and we noticed that the device was actually fairly easy to learn, to use, and it was relatively comfortable to wear as well. The holograms were also clear, even with a lot of backlight in the back. We also use it in an operative setting. So we wore the entire operational clothes, the scrubs and everything, and then put the device on and still were completely sterile. And then did a simulation of an operation, but you could still use the device fairly easy. It recognizes your hands and gloves and everything. From the people we tested, we saw that only 4 of them had actually a yearly experience with VR and only 1 with AR. And that's mainly because the person plays Pokemon Go a lot. And the question for me was which one would be more advantageous for neurosurgery in this case. And the biggest and strongest devices are either the VR or AR device, the one we just tested. And we noticed that the VR device as well, being stronger and more having a stronger processing capacity, they are still needed to be connected to a computer. They still block off your complete vision, so you can't really see anything. And they're not completely portable and wireless. What AR has over VR is that it's, you can see your environment, so you have a lot of different ideas. You can think about that. For example, what I just said in the beginning, where you can place a virtual object and connect it to a real world object. You can think about, okay, if I have an operation, I can, for example, project a scan that I had earlier on top of the person I'm scanning. Say I'm doing a craniectomy, I can put the scan of a CT scan on top of the skull as I'm operating, so you can clearly see what you're doing in real time as well. And or other applications would be like, if you want to teach your patient, like, hey, that you have this and this and this problem, you could just give them the device and they can just look at themselves and be like, oh, that's how my nerves are trapped, or this is how this operation went. And you can clearly just educate them much more nicely using the glasses instead of using black and white images from the MRI. You can just put the MRI images on the person and they can be like, oh, I see, I can clearly visualize what you're going to do, and you can explain the operations much more nicely. Other than that, the portability and the wirelessness of the device we found much handier than using virtual reality, because you can literally just walk around the entire hospital wearing the thing. It just needs a Wi-Fi connection, so you can just connect it to your phone as well if you want. And the only problems we found was that because it's not connected to a computer and because it's fairly new. There was limited processing capabilities. For example, when we made the CT scan and turned that into a hologram, we had to lower the polygon count a little bit, because or else you just couldn't see the hologram at all. It just wouldn't project it. It would be too much. And other than that, there was a limited supported apps. I had to go through about 5 different programs to be able to go from CT scan to hologram. And I know nowadays there's a much more streamlined program that you can just put in the CT scan and it creates your hologram for you. But there is still some issues with doing this. You do need a little manual to know what to do, which is what we found a little annoying. About 3 months ago, the new HoloLens 2 was announced, and I hadn't had a chance to put my hands on it yet. Apparently, it's way stronger, and instead of just using one hand to control things in your reality, you can actually use 2 hands to move around things, which is pretty nice. It's also much faster, much more tactile to your finger. So I would imagine in an operative setting, this is much nicer than using the first HoloLens, where we had issues where you would try to pick something up, but it wouldn't recognize it. So you have to actually stand on a specific position, or else it just wouldn't recognize your fingers. This one seems to be much more faster in that sense. And with a stronger processor comes the capabilities for stronger applications. So we do also hope that some designer, some app maker can help us make a much more nicer, streamlined procedure of making CT scan or MRI to holograms. And from this presentation, I had a couple of discussion points, mainly well, learning and using the HoloLens required actually minimal effort from both students and doctors. We did see a way faster learning curve from the students, as they are much more used to phones and new technology, I would assume, and then specialists would take about a little bit more, maybe 5 minutes to learn to use the device. But in any case, everybody learned to use the device in under 30 minutes, which is much nicer than some other devices that you could buy to see 3D scans that A, are much more expensive, and B, require a lot more knowledge on how to use all of these programs and controls. The UI was very easy to navigate. It's the same as a Windows computer. You have your Windows, you have your programs, you just turn it off and on. It's very easy, even with backlight in the background. We also shown that if you play games with the device, it's actually much faster to learn to use the device. So that's a fun plus. And making the 3D models, as I said, from the scans was free. It didn't cost us a dime. And it was a quick process. It just required a lot of different applications and programs. So coming back to my point of, is this useful in any point in time for neurosurgery? Well, in an operation room, I do see a lot of applications for this device. You can probably put it on and see, for example, you can put the stats of a patient that you don't really have time to look at, for example, allergies or other things that the vital signs. You can just put it on the side of your peripheral vision. So as you're operating, you don't really have to look up where's the blood pressure again, and then it's written right there. Or you can put the scan also in your peripheral vision. So there's a lot of applications you can do in the operative room itself, and not just for neurosurgery, but also for other forms of surgery. Specifically for neurosurgery, this will help a lot with preoperative planning. If you have a scan and you want to devise a specific pathway to, I don't know, a tumor or a specific approach to your problem, you can use the device to actually just pre-plan your thing by actually making a model and moving it in real time in space, instead of just looking at it on a computer screen. And for educational purposes, this is also very nice. For students, especially for me, I had the opportunity to learn a lot more about neuroanatomy, which isn't the most easiest form of anatomy. But by wearing the glasses and actually grabbing a skull or a brain and making it much bigger than me and just walking around it, I could much easier see, oh, this is which region that synapse connects with that, and I can learn much easier. So I do see a lot of usability and applications for this device in neurosurgery, and I hope that with this presentation, I can maybe show you guys that you guys can also think about that. What do you guys think?
Well, great. I tell you, that was really good. There's, I'm sure, a lot of discussion points raised. And Jason, I think they're singing your song. I think Said's singing your song. Yeah, I'll bump you off the screen share, okay?
Yeah.
And go ahead, Jason.
Oh, excellent presentation, Saiyd. So I had a few questions around your testing with your sample size. You mentioned there were 27 end users that you tested the device with. How did you find the ergonomics of the device for the users and other factors, including how did the device fit to the head of all the users, and how was the durability of your device after the testing?
Well, actually very positive. We tested it on a couple of different factors. I didn't show you the questionnaire because it's in Dutch, but basically we tested on where the hologram is visible from 0 to 5. We tested if the hologram, if the device is comfortable, 0 to 5, and we tested a bunch of different things about the device itself. And we noticed that we grabbed, I just went around and asked a whole bunch of people with posters and stuff for that, will you join my, will you join my research? So we had about around, if I recall correctly, around 18 students and 9 or so residents and specialists, all with different head sizes, women and men, all different ages as well. And the device, basically it has, yeah, unfortunately I don't have it with me right now, but it has a little bit of a band in the back, and you just turn this band and it moves in this position, left and right. And then once you put it on your face, you can actually just adjust it in a vertical axis as well on top of your nose. And for example, I have glasses. You can take the little nose thing from the lens off, and you can just wear the lens on top of your glasses as well. I found it very comfortable. I wore it for long periods of time as well. As I was doing my research, I would just put it on and then write on my computer and just look there. And then I have another screen with, I don't know, some other stats there or some details there, and I would have something else there. So as I'm working on my laptop, I had multiple screens open using the glasses, and I just wore it for multiple hours. But that's me. Around the other people that told me, they all found it fairly, so from a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the most comfortable and 1 being the most uncomfortable thing you can wear. Most people said it was a 4. I only had one person that said it was a 1 because it didn't really fit his head very well. But other than that, I don't think there will be a big problem with this device fitting most heads, especially with the new one coming out on the HoloLens 2. I noticed that there were some changes in how it's done. Instead of a band, it's more of a hat you put on with an adjustable strap around it. So I think that's a much better design.
Do you use the HoloLens 2, Jason?
Yeah, so I've been developing on the HoloLens since the early days, since it was announced back in March 2016. And another developer and I in the mixed reality community joined forces and created a social holographic communications platform called Mix3D. And that's where end users, remote end users are connected. As we all are on this Zoom webinar call this morning, we would all be walking around within each other's living space as tagged avatars to each camera device worn by each end user. So it's been in production since 2017 and available for download through the Windows the Microsoft Store, and it's available for the Microsoft HoloLens right now, as well as the other immersive mixed reality devices.
Can you show us that, Jason?
Yeah, I'll show you the HoloLens.
Do you mind, Saiyd? Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I do. I haven't seen the second one yet.
So. Yeah, okay. I knew you guys would get along.
Yeah, I don't have the second device yet. It's not pegged for release until June 2019.
So you're actually working with Microsoft to develop it?
Yeah, so through the other startup that I have, we have a 5-year partnership agreement with Microsoft, and we agreed to pivot towards the education technology sector. So this is what the HoloLens device looks like here. This is version, I would say like version 0. It's the first developer's edition that was released back in, March 2016. They announced it at the Microsoft Build conference back in October 2015. And that's around the time I was invited by Microsoft to test the device. And then through my use case that I submitted and my application, then I was accepted as a Wave 1 developer. And we've been actively developing in the community. Most of the apps, keep in mind right now, they're all in R&D. So a lot of the apps that are available through the Microsoft Store, they're from prototype stage all the way to full production kind of flagship apps that Microsoft has backed.
Okay, yeah. Very good.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I think the one I have is the consumer one, so the slightly it didn't have the strap above the head, basically. It was just,
Oh yeah, it's just this strap here. It's just an additional kind of strap that you can attach to the top of the device, and then it just makes the device a little bit more stable. And I was asking about comfort levels of your users. I found, yeah, for the most part, this seems to fit to most skulls, but I would say that there are some outliers where, yeah, especially like if it's younger people, then the device, they might be bouncing around, then the device could fall off the head. Or if it's people with larger skull sizes, then they have a hard time actually getting the device on. So they have to kind of situate it a little bit more. One of the new features of the version 2 device that's being released is the ergonomic factor. And in fact, I believe this one's about 1.5 pounds that's worn, but the new one is supposed to be 30% lighter and more comfortable. How they measure that, I'm not sure, but.
Okay.
Yeah, we did notice that. I had, I think, 2 or 3 smaller, younger student girls that would wear it, and they would have their hair basically tied up in a ponytail. And wearing that device is a bit of a little sport to try and fix that entire device on their smaller skull whilst having the hair somehow there. And I did notice that wearing the device, especially the front part, is heavier than the rest of it. If you don't put it on correctly, you will get your glasses to press really hard and really down on your nose after a long period of time. But I watched the presentation of the HoloLens 2 that was shown, I think 3 or 4 months ago. And yeah, it did seem much easier to wear, much faster to wear. The lady that showed it just put it on quite easily, and it was just moving around her head. It didn't wiggle. Even though that one itself, when it is actually on your head, it didn't seem unstable at all. It's also a very sturdy device. I wouldn't think that if it falls down once or twice that it would immediately shatter into a million pieces. I do think it's a pretty sturdy device.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with that. Yeah, and the nice thing about this technology is that the applications can be pushed out through several endpoints. So you build kind of one project, and then you can port your code over quite easily to like virtual reality devices, to smartphones for augmented reality interfaces, or to even the head mounted devices here, such as the mixed reality. I would say the competitor to the Microsoft HoloLens, the closest one would be Google Magic Leap. But from the feedback within the development community, Microsoft HoloLens is much further ahead. And especially you're building the applications for the Universal Windows platform. So basically that same code base fits across the entire ecosystem of devices for Microsoft's products.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I do have to say though that the devices are, in my opinion, a little bit different in usage. For example, the Google Glass, I would rather connect it to my phone and use it more in a daily life kind of situation. As I'm walking around, I would like to see notifications pop up. I don't think I would wear the HoloLens to go around walking in the city, for example. Okay. It's a bit too expensive to do that, and it would be a bit weird walking around with such a big device in my head.
Well, that's the way it was with glass too.
Yeah, that too. Well, yeah, but I did show some pictures just now. Some of the newer augmented reality glasses just look like sunglasses. They just look like very fancy sunglasses. There's a battery here, the microphone is here, and some of the speakers are just temporal bone speakers, so you don't even have to put in headphones or anything. It just sends the sound waves through your skull, so you don't it just looks like a sunglasses. But on the other hand, the HoloLens is much more of a computer you're wearing on your face. Basically, that's how I kind of see it. While the other one is more of an extension of my phone. This is an actual computing device that I'm going to use to do some work, as it is. I would rather have this thing, have it up. I can open up emails, as it were. I can answer them using my voice commands. I can type. I did notice, on the other hand, that being from a Dutch university, a lot of the people I was doing this experiment on were all either Dutch or some sort of European variant. And the Google does not respond very easily to an European accent, as I've tested out as well.
They don't respond to the American accents either.
Well,
don't worry about that.
Up till now, I've been with my accent. I've been pretty successful with making Google do things I want.
Really? Oh, okay. You're lucky.
Yeah. No, but even then, using the voice commands, as it were, I would just use it to be like, hey, hey, or in this case, it wasn't Google, it would be Cortana. I'll be, hey, Cortana, open this app, or hey, Cortana, do this. But actually using the device itself, I'd rather just use my hands. That,
you know, you mentioned you superimpositions of images onto a patient's skull, etc., are one clinical use, as well as displaying data from the patient. Surgeon, I know there's we interviewed a spine surgeon from Brazil that uses it and superimposes exactly that. Is there any other uses that you know of in the OR? Do you envision or actually have seen?
Well, the superimposing images onto the real world, which in theory sounds pretty easy, but you have to kind of think about, okay, this is a hand, for example, and I would like to impose an X-ray of a hand on my hand. It would have to move as the real world hand moves, and it would have to also kind of bend just the same. And X-rays usually don't do that. So there's a lot of little bit, the idea behind it is relatively simple, but the execution of it, I would imagine, especially for programmers, because I would not want to be in the shoes of a programmer to execute this application. But one other, well, for example, the showing the peripheral data of a patient while you're operating is always handy. For a patient that's just laying still in an operation room, that's a bit easier. For example, if you're, like what I said, yeah, if you're doing a DBS surgery, you can put the patient here, and then you can look through the glasses. You can see, okay, this is where the skull is. This is where I'll do my entryway. That's much easier because the patient's head is not moving around. But what I also think is very important is that you can use these glasses also to educate students or patients much easier than showing it on a screen. So if you give the glasses to, I don't know, some a patient or like a kid or something like that, they would first of all be, whoa, taken aback by how cool it is. But then afterwards they'll be like, oh, so this is what you're going to do. I think for explaining things to students or to patients, this would be a great help.
Patient education, huh?
Yeah, and students.
To actually see the operation taped or whatever.
For example.
Yeah. Marco, any comments?
Well, is definitely impressive and is the proof that neurosurgery go at the same walk of technology. I appreciate a lot this technology, even for above all for education of neurosurgeon for the patients, and also for planning of surgery. The only thing I guess it should be a problem using this technology is when you use the operating microscope. When you use operating microscope, it could be useful to have this hologram at the same loop of the microscope. For example, when you're performing skull-based surgery to remove a clivus tumor, you could have this hologram. Theoretically, I'm not a technologician, so I'm just talking as a neurosurgeon. It could be useful to have the pictures of the clivus tumor in the hologram that get over the reality you see in the microscope, and tell you how is going your surgery. You have to remove all the tumor, or you need still to go, for example, behind the basilar vessel, there is still tumor. So it could be useful if this technology could be applied to the operating microscope. I think it could be, in just one word, revolutionary for neurosurgery. I don't know if your opinion, Mr. Saiyd and Mr. Jason.
I do think that would be incredible if you could manage to somehow incorporate the augmented reality inside of the lens of the microscope. I would have to look at Mr. Evans here if that's technologically possible. I do, however, have an additional idea that I also had was you can have nowadays these little scanners that you would put on top of a vein or something for nurses, and it would show basically a superimposed image, but it would show basically the veins of the patient, and then you can do much easier some functions. But imagine, for example, as you're operating, you can see the veins and the arteries much easier inside of the tumor, because I've been to operations before, and I've seen the how it looks through the microscopic lens. For me, for the first 2 or 3 times, it's just a lot of pink and a lot of red.
Right.
So trying to distinguish things would be very hard. But I think, especially for an educational purposes, you can, for example, maybe in the future, I'm not sure if that's possible now, somehow be able to tint different parts of what you see. For example, tumor cells. Tumor can be more green or more blue or something. So as you're operating, you can be like, oh, this is still more tumor, this is still that. Or you can see the arteries and the veins moving much better as it's superimposed through the microscope. I think that would make the success rate of tumor resections much higher. It would make it go from 60 to 70% with when you're resecting. You don't have to leave things around because you're not sure if you're connected to a vessel or not. In this case, you can be more sure of what you're doing, I feel.
Has Peter used it in the OR?
He did. He used it more to test it out, actually, but he did use it to see scans beforehand, for example.
Oh, okay.
But he usually does a lot of brain surgery, which requires a microscope, and he can't look with the glasses through the microscope.
Okay, yeah.
And to further add to the Sayyid's point, you could integrate DICOM imaging data. Most processing data is under the format of DICOM, and you can import that data quite easily into a mixed reality environment to reconstruct that DICOM imaging data as volumetric holographic models that you can interact with. In terms of overlaying meshes to patients, for example, you can do that, and there's capability through the spatial mapping and spatial understanding of the device itself. You get something known as spatial anchors, and those spatial anchors retain kind of a memory of where that hologram was overlaid in the physical environment. Because one of the beautiful things about the HoloLens is that it actually has multiple combinations of technology into its processing unit. It has the same technology that the Kinect sensors were created for the Xbox, if you recall, the video game system. And what those sensors do is it creates a realistic understanding of the physical environment by mapping the coordinates of all objects on the XYZ coordinate system. And then from there, the holographic objects are overlaid on top of those mesh, so it actually retains a memory. The only thing that we've found so far is that there's a little bit of drift of the holograms. So you'll get a bit of deviation in terms of the mesh being overlaid on top of the physical object. It can drift from time to time. But with the HoloLens version 2, it actually has an artificial intelligence chip that's been built into its holographic processing unit. And it's capable of conducting deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, directly right onto its device. So it has a much greater understanding now of the world. To answer your next point about having the filters for the different colors to be overlaid within the environment, and to have objects such as tumors being outlined, absolutely, yeah, that comes back to the spatial understanding, and then just being able to test with different filters, color filters applied to your computer vision product.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super cool once you experience it. First time I experienced the HoloLens, it just felt completely as if this
surreal,
was,
huh?
Yeah, it was so immersive, and that's one of the things that Microsoft advocates about this product, is that you have to create compelling, immersive end user experiences, or else people won't be interested, obviously.
Right, it will be novelty. Yeah. That's about it.
That would be a gimmick, and that was when I first had the device in my hand, I thought, oh, okay, I can see a little dog on the table, and I can walk around it and it looks cute, but how exactly is this going to help me operate better? And after a while, I think I managed to make it recognize a card that I had in my hand, and then when I would turn it around, it would do a little effect. And I was thinking, if it can recognize a card and it would do an effect on a motion I would do, it could probably also, because I can't program at all, but that's why I'm looking at Mr. Evans here. If it's more possible, for example, to put, you can actually have X-ray vision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's more or less you could if you have like a source of imaging data that's mapped specifically to that patient or that end user, and then it's overlaid on top of the physical object as a mesh overlay. And then, yeah, getting back to your point, you mentioned about putting meshes over top of joints such as like a hand, for example, and how the object would be stationary, but to see it, you would actually need some type of like movement, like flexing and extension. Yeah, that's interesting. These are kind of like the use cases that you'll stumble across where you haven't thought about how to solve something like this in the past. Yeah. So yeah, but I think with the advent of machine learning built into the product, a lot of these scenarios are going to be automatically taken care of in the future.
Yeah, I do agree with that, especially because, for example, I was thinking if you are going to map something, you might as well use real world markers. For example, when people do CGI, CGI filming of faces, for example, they place a lot of little black dots in the face, so that when the person uses different facial markers, the camera would notice that and then transform that into whatever you want it to be. You could do that with a hand as well. You can put specific dots on the hand, be like, this is a digit, this is a digit, this is the hand phalanx, whatever, and then connect that with the scan. And as the hand is moving, the scan would also move. But the animations of it and all of the little intricacies, that is a lot more than that's a lot more thinking required that I'm not really educated to know about.
Yeah, like it's interesting because yeah, like the Azure Connect, like this right here is like the Connect version 1 sensor. I don't know if you can see it.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah, so this basically will.
Is that a good set?
Well, this is old technology.
Oh, along one of the first ones.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't until just recently that Microsoft released their Azure Connect sensor. And how I could describe it is it's like a webcam on steroids, because it'll like completely 3D map the environment now with depth. And from what I saw of the device, it'll map out, like if you're in like an auditorium, the device has the ability to have the depth of like up to 12 rows in a theater. So that's how much kind of depth sensing capability it has now. So it does very effective 3D mapping and then projection over Microsoft's cloud services through Azure.
And maybe to make it a bit more easier for the viewers to understand, like anybody know Snapchat, the app? And a lot of the times nowadays you have filters on this app that you could just look into the camera looks at your face, you say this is my face, and then it would put something on it, like it will make your eyes bigger or make you have a dog face or something like that. And it's as simple as,
they use that a lot. Yeah,
exactly. And your phone can already do that, and this is just an application you can download from anywhere. It's just a phone. And I can only imagine in the future, especially with the newer phones coming out with actual depth sensors, dedicated depth sensors on the back of the camera, to be able to take, okay, this is a house, table, chairs, everything. So you can do that with your phone. I can only imagine with a device much bigger, with bigger cameras, how much more in depth that can be, more specific.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about these devices. Like even with the version 1 here, you have the capability to override the optics of the device, and you could actually put this on top of a digital SLR camera and get much higher resolution. And that's essentially like any of the demos you see that Microsoft conducts. Those demos aren't actually, the mixed reality capture isn't done with like another HoloLens device. It's done with like a souped up version of the HoloLens sitting on top of a much more capable camera of higher optics. So yeah, absolutely, there's definitely many use cases, and that's one of the most attractive things about this technology, is because it is building on the Universal Windows platform framework, that the cross compatibility capability is, it's so there across like all the products. It integrates so well.
I had a question actually. You used you have used the HoloLens too, or?
No, I haven't yet. No. But my the other co-founder that I'm working with on the Mixed 3D project, he's actually one of the advocates within the community. So he's actually had the opportunity to use the device. I haven't had the opportunity yet. I've been invited, but just schedule hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
So hopefully on this Tuesday, I'm scheduled to go to Microsoft. So I'm hoping to get my hands on it.
You want to give a talk after that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd like to see that. Sorry, Saiyd.
Yeah, I will definitely be wanting to hear about that, because one question I had about the original, the first one, was the rather small FOV field of view you had of the device. So basically, it's not, so if I have my glasses right now, it's not, so what I see through my glasses is this entire square, right? And if I put it on my face, my entire peripheral is what I see through the glasses. But however, if I look up enough, I can see above my glasses. And the HoloLens is, the glasses you see through is actually much smaller than your actual peripheral. And so if I would stand a bit further away from my laptop, it would be about that much I would see through it. So if I had a really large scan, I couldn't see the entire scan, because even though my vision would see the room it's in, the device itself would look like this. So the scan would only show, I mean, the hologram would only show a bit half of it. So I was wondering if the field of view would be bigger on the HoloLens too.
That's that's one of their key features that they're promoting right now, is that it has increased. And one of the challenges that Microsoft worked with initially was the field of view constraints in respect to the cost of the device. Just the waveguides within the actual, if you actually see, there's actually these waveguides. I can't see if I'll put it up.
Yeah,
and you see kind of how they look.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that would be like your field of view there, and apparently they have increased. It's like in the software when you're creating it, it's fully immersive, 360 degrees. So eventually, as the hardware, the capability of the optics improves over time, and the price is brought down, then from a software point of view, that's not a problem. And that's where kind of like the immersive mixed reality devices stand out right now, because when Microsoft released Windows 10 a couple of years ago, one of their main goals was for Windows mixed reality. And in everyone's computer right now, you actually have the Windows mixed reality portal, which is available. If your GPU within your laptop or your desktop can support the Windows mixed reality devices, then it easily plugs into your computer, and now you have a full 360 degree, they call it immersive mixed reality. It's kind of more like a VR experience, but the spatial mapping and spatial understanding of the environment is what kind of separates virtual reality and augmented reality from the mixed reality, is that the mixed reality devices understand the physical environments.
That does sound a lot more like virtual reality indeed, because I did work with the HoloLens and the Vive as well. And not the HoloLens, sorry, Oculus Rift. And,
excuse me, Saiyd, we have Ike Terry in here. He's a noted neurosurgeon. He's done some work with virtual reality. I know he has an interest in it. How you doing, Ike? Let me unmute you there. Go ahead, Ike.
Hi, John. Good to see you. Just joined the show. Let me listen to what he has to say.
Well, you missed the bulk of it, Ike, but that's okay. Can you let me introduce you to Saiyd Sinlae. He's a master student from the Netherlands. And Ike you've done some work with virtual reality in the OR, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you tell Saiyd what you've done, and if you have any questions about it?
Right. See, we have a 3 Tesla interoperative MR, and we have mated that to Medtronic's navigation, and then we have this OARM. So what we do is we fuse the OARM images to the MR images, and then on the workstation we make bone plus soft tissue fused image. We use a software to fuse it. Sometimes we use manual fusion, and then we we navigate with that. And the microscope that I have has image injection, so I can use that as well. Now I'm very interested in this Oculus Rift, and also we are working on a new microscope where we have a virtual vision interposed with the real vision. So we are working on how to fuse the real vision with the virtual vision. So with for especially skull base. So brain, it is a bit difficult because of the brain shift and all that. But skull base, we think it's a rather easy option. For example, carotid, the vessels, the cranial nerves, they don't shift. So we're trying to fuse it, and maybe the next step would be real time, because we have the intraop MRI. So real time wouldn't be much difficult. So this is my interest.
Yeah, we were talking mostly about Microsoft HoloLens, mostly. Do you use that in the OR2 IPE? Have you used that or no? Oculus only.
Yeah, so we have in Alicante, we use the Oculus, but I'm very interested in the Microsoft HoloLens too. So this, if we could use, because the new microscope we're looking at is for 3D vision, but then with Microsoft HoloLens, I can fuse both the real images and the virtual images. I mean, we are seriously considering some alterations, some customization for this Microsoft HoloLens to use it along with the Karl Stowe's Whitehome 3D.
Yeah, let me introduce you to Jason Evans. He's going to use the Microsoft HoloLens 2 next week. So he'll have the latest word on what's going on, right, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to meet you.
Is a big neurosurgeon from Nepal, originally India, but he's very tech smart, and he's pushing the boundaries of tech, virtual reality and the OR, and etc. So I'm sure he'll be interested on what you find after you're trying the Microsoft HoloLens 2 next week. He's trying it. I guess it's brand new.
Yeah, it's a second development generation. This is version 1 development device that you're familiar with. It's been available since probably 2016, March 2016. So version 2 of the device is expected to be released. The target date is June 2019, and it's more geared towards the enterprise now, less geared towards development community. It's not quite considered yet a consumer product. So there's still, you consider it an R&D kind of mode. But right now would be perfect opportunity for use cases, especially within operating rooms, because it's such a new technology, and the capability of the code framework is built on the Universal Windows platform. So it integrates across that entire ecosystem of products throughout, even all like Office 365. So you could be in the operating room, you could have a dashboard on the device that's available. From what I'm hearing from Saiyd, it seems as if, yeah, that's something that his research valued, was having diagnostic data pulled in from multiple device units. You could have DICOM imaging data overlays through image viewers. You could even have your Outlook calendar pinned up on a wall that you could easily check with. It really, the challenge would be figuring out kind of the ergonomic design factors to really nail it down, because that's what I found was kind of like the biggest constraint at the start of getting involved with this technology, was trying to figure out what's the best practices now within in a physical world, where the physical world is your entire kind of software code landscape. And you're trying to figure out things like, I created a social holographic remote collaboration tool called Mix3D with another co-founder. And like, for instance, we found that when some users would connect from larger living spaces, like there was one user that was in a large office location, and then there were some people that were in small offices. And what we found was all of a sudden, like, the person in the large living space would walk like 20 feet through your wall in the smaller office. So you have to kind of figure out now, okay, how do you manage with that? And what's the best way to deal with it? Is it some type of animation that gets triggered that'll all of a sudden cue the person to like reorientate themselves to the positioning of other people in the room? Or is it best to use like visual indicators to pull those people back to a landscape? Some of the things that we found work best with a large group of users in rooms was if we had a central object that we could place in the middle of the scene that would get all the end users to kind of form a circle around this object. And then that way it would kind of cue everyone to kind of line up appropriately. And what we found with our testing was that we had 37 users simultaneously connect in the environment at the same time. And we found that we triggered 37,000 view counts across a test time of 30 minutes. While each person was engaged with other holographic objects, AKA themselves, they were talking to each other for 4.5 minutes on average. And in reality, you know, that could be just someone standing in their office talking to the wall. So, you know, so it's kind of, it's very compelling because all of a sudden, you know, that person isn't actually in your physical room location, but you're so memorized by it that it seems like they're actually right there in front of you. You could pull up, like, yeah, say you have 3D object models that you want to share. Hey, look at this new piece of equipment. Oh, look at this. You can share all those objects just easily as you could sending a file through this Zoom webinar chat.
Another option I was thinking about when you were describing the 3D meeting is actually, for example, if you're on shift at night and the specialist is on call, for example, and then you have a resident doing a small operation or whatever, and he has a question, or he or she has a question, you can actually just pop up the HoloLens and join the virtual operation, as it were, with cameras, and so that the specialist can then see what the resident is seeing and then help in that way.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, John. Yeah, I think it could be also used by distance. For example, if I have a bad pathology, I'm not expert of skull base, I could, for example, ask the help of Hype from distance. He with holographic virtual reality can guide me to the pathology, right?
Yes, for sure. Now, my interest in this would be, I am trying to use this as a 3D glass for my Whitehome 3D. And then on that, I would like to superimpose the scans, the virtual image of the superimposed scans, so that I know where exactly I'm drilling. I know where the carotid is. Not that I don't know about it, but it would make me much more confident. So, for example, if I'm doing a petrosectomy or if I'm doing a translab, if I know where is the IAM when I'm drilling, or where the jugular bulb is, or if I'm going transapical superiorly, transapical inferiorly, so where is the cochlear aqueduct? These are some things that you always don't know. So these are things where if you have, if you can superimpose the whole scans on the Whitehome 3D images, these are some things that you could do. And as Marco said, of course, you can step into somebody's theater and then help or take help from Marco. So these are things which you could do. That this is really future. And by the way, tomorrow we are doing on Super Sunday we are doing a paraclinoid aneurysm where we have done the complete Dolenk approach, and then there was an intraoperative brief rupture which actually helped me to clip it. So we will be doing this one. Actually, we'll be doing this tomorrow on Super Sunday.
Okay.
We were just talking actually about the possibilities of superimposing images intraoperatively. For example, we were talking about because nowadays you have the scans that you can see venous and arteries, and that's just superimposed on the skin, so nurses can know exactly where they can do their punctures. And we're thinking how that would, for example, in a microscope, that would be very nice because you can then use your augmented because then this still counts as augmented reality, as you would then project arteries and veins in the microscope on your operation area. So what you're seeing, and then you can clearly see, okay, this is where that venous loop, this is where that artery loop. So you can more or less navigate yourself much more nicely instead of trying to figure it out just by seeing and guessing.
Yeah, I feel there's going to be several form factors of this technology available. I feel that I see a lot of research and development going on with the optic companies for microscopy and getting augmented reality overlays built into their products, including with machine learning and deep learning through computer vision, which really helps with identifying specific markers within the images that it sees, and it does it with much greater time and with much fewer defects along the way in terms of identifying those markers. Other use cases of hardware that I saw from other investment firms was more on an enterprise level. They have like studio kind of theaters where they're like glass screens that are set up in the room, and then you get the complete kind of like the Tupac walking on the stage hologram that you saw a few years ago. That's starting to be used in like concerts and entertainment venues. I'm starting to see those type of solutions now available for enterprise units, where it's just like a looking glass, where it's a large kind of theater display, and then it has that same kind of remote holographic presence to it. That's quite useful for large audiences, I find. So
I think I'll get a Microsoft HoloLens as soon as it's available.
Yeah, it's very it's captivating technology.
I would like to connect to the R&D team who's working on this, who can, you know, if I can connect to somebody in the R&D and, you know, and then tell them what.
Develop it, right?
Yeah, the developer.
Yeah.
So that we could tell them that, you know, we are working for a new microscope, because the present microscope is just, I mean, it's so outdated. Because the chip-only camera is going to come, I mean, going to be there. There will be no more optics. So an 8K camera with 3D facilities, which can increase the depth. You know, the stereo depth in a camera, in an optic camera, cannot be changed. But in a chip-only camera, this can be manipulated. So you can get more depth when you're magnifying more. The depth actually decreases in an optical camera, but the depth can, you know, can be kept the same, or even you can have a increased depth when you're going on higher and higher mag in a digital camera. All this can be done. I mean, this is something that the surgeons need to use. I mean, and if you can use this, skull base and vascular becomes much more easier. And if you can combine the surgical skills, the experience, and this, then you can have much better results. So, I mean, this is what the world is coming to right now, and so we have to use all this.
Do you foresee mentoring other neurosurgeons how to do cysternostomy through virtual, through these means, right?
In fact, 2 weeks before I was in Malaysia, and I was heading a course there, and what I did is I did the first day, I used the Whitehome 3D for dissections. I did a Dollings, my version of the Dollings and the petrosectomy. I combined both these, and then I did this on a Whitehome so that everybody could see this in 3D. And we are now starting to operate with the Whitehome on a Mitaka arm. So that we are trying to replace the microscope completely, and I'm trying to get these images, the navigated images, onto the Whitehome. So we're working with Karl Stoes on that. With these kind of things, we can easily teach surgeons in 3D, not like the 2D. I mean, well, I have the 3D Trinion images in my theater. In my OR, I have the Trinion monitor and the Pentero microscope with the 3D facilities. So, but then better than that, I feel now the Trinion is very costly, but a Whitehome will be an excellent solution if it can be used like a microscope. It is a chip-only camera, and if it can be used just like the white term, and let's say that no screen, just Microsoft HoloLens 2. So you can look wherever you want and you can operate, and you can sit wherever you want and you can operate. You know, this is my dream. So now I'm looking at the screen and taking off the microscope, but the next step would be no screens.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of holography, they have several other ways to project holograms into a physical environment. And some of the methods, John, if you recall, the last time we had spoke with the other gentleman that was on the call, he was describing his experience where lasers were used to ionize metals, and then light would be projected, and you'd have these objects that would come up. Since then, I've seen solutions where they'll use like LED lights, and then they'll create like just good for marketing purposes and billboards, like where you can have what looks like it's like an illusion of a hologram that's kind of being projected. But those two solutions, you can't really inject any software code into them, so you don't really get any type of user interaction with those type of holograms. And yeah, they can be that. This is where the head-mounted device kind of software capability comes into play, because you can start bringing these objects to life quite easily. Like the input system for the HoloLens, you have three forms of input. Where you look, it's like kind of similar to like moving your mouse around on your computer. Where you tap, like an air tap on this device, it's that's like a mouse click. The HoloLens 2, the gesture capability is going to be much more open now. Instead of being restricted to just like a air tap, which it's called, like a mouse click, like making an L, you're going to have much more capability where you can just like swat holograms out of the way, push on objects. And the HoloLens 2, the AI chip that's built into the holographic processing unit, the HPU, it tracks all the bones within your hands. So it has an understanding constantly of like what all the joints are doing as well. So that's one of the improvements for the next version. And then the third input that it uses is voice. But what they're finding is voice isn't as widely used, and there's some kind of constraints around voice commands, such as you have to use labeled text that's quite easily to remember. I've seen some apps out there where the voice library is like so complex and you have no idea of remembering what's built inside its kind of voice dictionary. So I don't feel that's very good, effective design. So what Microsoft recommends is to have the labels and text on your holographic objects that are exactly similar to your voice input. So if it's like select, you just say select, and it'll select the button as if you're clicking your mouse on a button on a 2D laptop screen. So yeah, so once those design constraints are kind of figured out, then I think this technology it's here to stay. It's going to revolutionize. It's the next wave of computing products. Definitely. Yeah. As the ergonomics improve and the design factors improve the device, that's where as soon as it's as easy as putting on just a pair of glasses, that's probably once this technology is going to go mainstream.
Yeah, we already saw that with some of the more consumer augmented reality glasses for like I said, extensions of your phones and things like that.
Yeah, like the one you're using, that seems very interesting for like a daily product. Which glasses were those that you?
These are just normal glasses. They're not.
Oh no, not those ones. But I mean, like your the ones that you showed in your presentation earlier. You had a couple of different brands. I've seen actually I've seen Boss. They released a pair of augmented reality glasses.
Yeah,
they look really slick.
Yeah, the ones I had on my presentation were in my opinion, the ones that look like sunglasses were the GoGlue E6. Those are more like smart glasses that can take pictures and record video and stuff like that, and they can project the video as well while you're doing your daily stuff. But the View 6 Blade is more comfortable. That one really looks like sunglasses, maybe a little bit more like a one of those cinema theater 3D glasses. but it comes in a different variety of colors. And what's very cool is specifically for someone like me that you can actually get it in prescription glasses as well. So you can just get normal prescription glasses, and then it's a smart glass as well. And it's this one. The other three were about $200 or less. Like the Google was around 150, and the Viewfind, which is just this little thing that connects to your glasses, actually around $50 if I'm not wrong on Amazon.
Big decrease.
Yeah, but like I said, these are more just cameras, and then they can put the picture in front of your vision. So it's not really real time. It's more of a, like I said, an extension of your phone. But the one I was talking about, the one that really looks pretty, is around more or less like $800 to $1,000 for the Supreme Special Edition that has a micro SD slot and more things like that. And that one you can get in prescription glasses, which is very nice.
That's very cool. Yeah, you triggered a thought while you were speaking. So with the HoloLens 2, that's another feature, is that it actually does eye tracking now. So it'll maps where the user is actually looking, and then it'll reposition the holograms as that person is looking based on eye movement. And I found an interesting question that a developer in the community had asked during the presentation. Was they asked if essentially if you could have open access to that eye tracking data, because they're like, if so, you could probably start measuring things like different emotional responses that end user may be experiencing, and you could start measuring like eye muscle contraction. And I just felt that was a very interesting opportunity and a use case, thinking about just decoding that data now that it's available.
Yeah. that was one of the things I was thinking about it with Dr. Kubin in the beginning of my research internship. Like what can we do? Because for example, I like playing video games. I love playing video games since I was very young, and I play a lot of different consoles, and I also follow technology pretty actively on all types of social media, and I read magazines and articles and all that. So he was asking me what would you do with something that you don't normally use in medicine, and how can you use it in medicine? And my idea came up to use augmented reality. But since then, actually, there have been so many different other things that came out, specifically in smartphones, that you can use in medicine. For example, the new LG, I think it's the new LG phone. It has, instead of just a camera recognition of your face or a fingerprint reader, it has this new form of security where it measures the hemoglobin count and the vein patterns of your palm. So you just put your palm in front of the phone, and it recognizes that, and then it unlocks the phone. And in the beginning, it does sound exactly like it is. It's just a gimmick, because it is still easier to just use your finger to open the phone. But this opens up a lot of different possibilities. For example, you can use that technology, but because there's a hemoglobin scanner, you could on a phone, something small that you can just buy anywhere for about, I think it's like $800 or less, and you can use that to measure and actually see vein counts and measure hemoglobin without having to puncture anything. It would be very nice for people that have chronic diseases or anemia or whatever to check their hemoglobin just by using their phones.
Yeah, in third world countries.
ECGs, yeah, for example, or you have ECGs you can connect to the back of your phone, and you can just put your fingers on it, and it measures your entire your thing. So I do think technology is going in a very in a lot of different ways, but the applications in medicine is like a one step extra that is very interesting. For example, the Kinect was mainly made for games, and the HoloLens was mainly made for traversing this Windows landscape, but then in a different step. But then using this in medicine, I thought that was the extra step, because you can just think about, oh, I can also use this in an operating room by seeing something through my microscope or seeing scans or whatever.
So it's used in plastic surgery, you mentioned. Any other areas of medicine you've seen it used in Maastricht?
I haven't seen it used yet in other things.
Other specialties, but you think it will happen in the surgical?
I definitely think it will happen, especially in things like orthopedics, for example, where CT scans and X-rays are pretty important, pretty major.
Yeah. I'll send you a webcast we did with a spine surgeon from Brazil that uses it mostly for superpositions.
Yeah, exactly.
Of possible grafts to measure the size of a graft. He was using it.
Yeah, in Maastricht, I know they did a research on the use of Oculus Rift, for example, and in transformative surgery, for example, in, I don't know, some sort of augmentation of for example, in breast implants, for example, you can always just put the picture on your computer, and then the patient would be like, oh, that's how I'm going to look like after the operation. But it's much better if they were wearing, in this case, they were using the Oculus, wear the Oculus and then just look down and be like, oh, that's how I'm going to look like after the operation. It gives basically, it just gives another dimension to what you're seeing, which is most importantly, I find, for patients to understand what they're getting into.
Fascinating. Okay, very good. Thank you for taking the time, Saiyd. Excellent presentation and good discussion. We look forward, hopefully, to having future ones to continue on with what's going on with virtual reality and augmented reality in the OR. So, and I hope Jason can let us know how his first session with Microsoft HoloLens 2 goes. I'm sure I will be interested in hearing that.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on the show. It was very nice.
Yeah, it'll be we're gonna send it to you. We'll send you the tape copy.
Thanks. And if anything, I will keep on probably looking into the uses of multiple types of technology in neurosurgery, because that is a very big interest.
Yeah, and anything you want to televise on Neurosurgical TV, you're welcome. Just let me know.
Yes.
Any parting questions or comments, Marco, before we go?
No, simply thank you. Jason, was very, very interesting, very impressive.
Thank you. Hey, John, you're like me. You're very quiet. That's okay. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, anything to say, or just hello? That's okay, John. You don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Saiyd, thank you very much, and we look forward to future presentations. And hang on, I'm just going to stop recording. Okay, we're off the air. We can say what we want.
Yeah, no, thanks. It was very nice. I am actually also looking forward to hearing from Mr. Evans about the HoloLens too, because that is something I would also try to get my hands on.
Yeah, Jason, that'll be a hot topic, man. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
You actually going to Microsoft in Canada or something?
So I'm going to their headquarters here in Toronto on Tuesday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'll get to experience all their latest and greatest. I was invited down to Seattle a couple months ago, but just couldn't attend with the schedule conflicts that I had. And also there's a mixed reality developers summit that's coming up within the next week or so in London, the UK as well. So usually I'll attend the events around Toronto, and it's the community is so supportive. I have to say that that's probably Microsoft's biggest strength.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really? They have people that test it and beta test it and give them feedback, etc.
Yeah, and just the access to the resources, and they'll assign, like, as a Microsoft partner, they've assigned engineering resources for our projects, and yeah, it's just the support is fantastic. I think that's what really kind of establishes their dominance within this marketplace.
Yeah. So it's more than just a toy. It's going to have actual purpose of uses. Now, is HoloLens, are they looking for people like to show a use for the Microsoft HoloLens, or they have plenty of cases, studies?
You know what? The community is entirely open source for the most part, and it's very easy to get involved. So if anyone would be interested, feel free to connect with me, and I can certainly establish them and guide them in the proper directions.
I don't know if Saiyd is interested, but I'll give you his contact info if Jason's okay, Saiyd?
Yeah, I am interested, and yeah, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. You guys want to communicate, but we certainly like to hear about the HoloLens.
Yeah, most of the
things. Anything else that's medically relevant?
I know a lot of use cases are establishing around facility planning of like surgery rooms.
Remote. How about IPE is into remote mentoring, which I think we kind of talked about that, how useful it could be.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of its it's right now it's not a key feature, but eventually I believe that the networking capability is
Oh, that'll be a valuable resource for surgeons to remotely mentor someone that's doing an operation. Like IPE is basically trying to change the standard of care in neurosurgery of head trauma, which is a huge challenge. And he's trying to teach this procedure to various neurosurgeons around the world, not concentrated, not numbers, but spread out. And I know he's interested in remotely mentoring through any technology, and it sounds like this has promise.
Yeah, and it's already here, like SharePoint. SharePoint, if you're familiar with SharePoint at all, Microsoft SharePoint,
I'm not. You mentioned that. I didn't know what you're talking about when you mentioned SharePoint.
Okay, so SharePoint is a product of Microsoft that's been around since 2003, and it's intended for enterprise. And what it is it's a content management system that consists of site collections, web parts, SharePoint lists, SharePoint libraries, as well as workflows, automation. And what Microsoft has done is they've actually integrated mixed reality into SharePoint now through SharePoint Spaces, it's called. And basically, it would be able as easily, I could within seconds create a SharePoint site, subsite, establish all the permissions and the user groups, invite everyone to a secure location. Then we could be having this call standing around a document library with all of our artifacts like files, PowerPoint presentations, Word documents, Excel files. We could have an image viewer on the wall to share images. We could have a media player on another wall to share like presentations. So all that capability is going to be available, and it's going to be bundled through Microsoft's core products, and that's where they're headed.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that as in reference to Zoom. It's kind of opening a new form of conference through the smartphone. It's so useful with a smartphone. I think another type of conference, going along with what you said about to share and sharing different technologies remotely on the run. The same as with Zoom is somehow going to be in that mix of communication and education because it's so convenient.
Yeah, definitely. John, I have to take my leave right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Saiyd, for taking the time. And anything you want to do, just let me know. We'll keep you in touch with what's going on. And say hello to Peter.
Yeah, definitely. I always tell him that, and he always just tell him hello back. He's always very busy.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, and I'll see you guys hopefully in another time.
I'll send you the recording.
See you.
Saiyd.
See you. Bye-bye.
Very good.
If I figure out.
Wow, is it a lot of security there at Microsoft to make sure you don't walk out with the programs?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, a lot of this stuff is public, but yeah, typically you'll be under NDA when
non-disclosures.
When you start getting kind of into the non-public, more research that they're doing. And same goes with like the other companies like Google, Magic Leap. Same thing there, but it's such a new space, and the community is pretty large now. Like the device itself is available in over 50 countries now, I believe. I think
you've been with us since the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Since Wave 1, I was selected as a Wave 1 developer.
What year was that?
2016 is when I got the device in my hand. So I was like pretty much
moving.
2 weeks after it was released. And keep in mind, it was originally created by Microsoft in conjunction with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And so that's where a lot of this design originally came from. But essentially, they've been working on this probably, at least from what I've heard, since probably around 2010. And then with Microsoft, like I believe their R&D budget per quarter is like $3 billion. So there's a lot of money going into this. This isn't it's not all just for their Microsoft HoloLens, but it's just another form factor in that whole universal Windows platform ecosystem. And that's the code it's one code base goes to any endpoint.
It's picking up momentum, you think, now, more progress lately in the micro. I guess you'll know more Tuesday, right? If it's really moving, right?
Top 3 industries right now are, so it's entertainment, obviously, education, believe it or not, and healthcare as well. And the healthcare use cases are going from everywhere, from the whole remote networking, the remote collaboration, to the planning, to the importing of 3D objects, to the automation of 3D printing of those 3D objects that can be built off of DICOM imaging data, through just like opportunities are endless. So if there's tools that I'm sure like everyone has their own kind of use cases that they're thinking of in their head, most likely tools can be built around those use cases with today's technology.
Well, you know, the spinal surgeon that uses augmented reality in the OR now from Brazil, he says he has to do some programming before, I guess he has to make a little program for every procedure.
Yeah, and like there can be automation within those workflows as well. And that's where the true benefit comes from. And from just listening to everyone on this call this morning, it seems like the design factor is highly valued, especially for like minimizing like unnecessary movements that surgeons would have in the operating room, and just to make like their comfort level much better, better user experience, to have the information that they need on demand when they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Marco, you're interested in spine, right? Spine is your thing?
Yeah, it's one of my main surgery.
I'll send you this this webcast we had with this Brazilian. I don't think you were there, Jason. Were you there, Jason, at this particular web?
I'm not sure if I was.
Yeah, let me quickly show it to you. And your webcast is there too, as you can see. Let me screen share. Hold on here.
Yeah, see, John and I, we've been, John Okello and I on the call here, we've been working together on computer vision end product that can integrate into the mixed reality environment. And we're using the technology to recognize disease biomarkers to predict negative health outcomes across non-invasive sites that can be measured, including excrements and bile samples. John himself, he's a PhD researcher, cancer researcher, geneticist. John, would you like to share a little bit about your background as well?
I'd like to hear that.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm a PhD geneticist. Currently, I analyze genomes for a local hospital here in Toronto, the Hospital for Sick Kids. But Jason and I, like he said, we are working on various ways of using, of looking at diseases from augmented reality, as well as other forms of biomarkers, including genomics. Prior to what I currently do, I used to work at the Queen's Cancer Research Institute at Queen's University here in Ontario. Mm-hmm. So we came up with a set of biomarkers. There are epigenetics biomarkers that can help tell from tissue samples if a patient has prostate cancer or not. And we tested on thousands of prostate tissues. And the accuracy we realized was 93%. So we can differentiate a given tissue, delineate between those with cancer and those without cancer with that high level of accuracy. Our area under curve is about 0.97, which is pretty high and beats most of the available biomarkers out there for prostate cancer. So we developed this out of, like I said, out of tissue. So we at the point of trying to see if we can make this work on non-invasive samples, such as urine and blood. And that's what's going on. Another one of the colleagues we are working with, me, Jason, and himself, is called Palak, Dr. Palak, but he's right now in the lab. He couldn't join us, so he's helping to validate this in non-invasive samples. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. It's the other arm of our overall disease detection idea, so we have the imaging aspect where we will just be imaging non-invasive sites, as well as excrement, like things like poo, urine, and just seeing different textures, different grades, different types, and then eventually correlating with health outcomes. But at the same time, we think having so many of these data coming from different avenues, then integrating them into some kind of a machine learning would be useful.
Yeah, we're looking at basically modeling after a WeChat platform, which basically end users, it'll be just part of their normal daily workflow, because we feel that the bathroom hasn't been innovated yet, hasn't been disrupted. So it's like building a smart bathroom.
Smart bathroom.
All your data is right there. And
Right.
it's in front of your eyes every single day and you're not seeing it. Then we can use current technology today to make it very part of everyone's workflow. And what's in everyone's, like, what device is in people's possession when they go into the washroom? Usually their smartphone, right?
Yeah.
So it's just as simple as using computer vision product now, and it'll tell through recognizing various factors that we can accurately measure. And yeah, even internet connectivity, we don't even have to worry about in underserved remote regions where there's like no internet. People still have smartphones. We can build local devices, that IoT devices that hook on as attachments to various peripheries in the washroom. And then from there, you can transmit that same data back to that person's smartphone through Bluetooth signal, so that they have all the report and the data that they can take to their healthcare provider next time that they have that option.
Well, there's so much going on. I know with the prostate issue of biomarkers, that certainly would be welcome. It's a very controversial area of medicine. Some urologists say, oh, biopsies are useless because you might miss a lesion. Other urologists say, oh, you got to take a scan, highly focused ultrasound scan. It's a very controversial area, and it's the #1 killer of men.
Yeah,
prostate cancer.
Yeah. For prostate cancer, for example, like in North America, like the most approximately 20 million men undergo the pre-screening with using the PSA test. And the PSA test has been there for decades, but it's not exactly accurate in telling if
it's a general screening test, right? Yeah,
it's a general screening test. So, and yet it's one of the tools that the medical community use to flag people who should go for biopsy. Right. Now, the biopsy, like you said, it's not accurate as well, because it's kind of a stratified random sampling where they take 10 to 12 different.
Biopsying the cancer or the normal tissue.
Exactly. So even a biopsy coming out negative does not necessarily mean somebody does not have cancer. So as of now, a biopsy itself is kind of a two-pronged thing. It's a pre-screening, like a second pre-screening tool as it's being used now, because it's still trying to see, is there cancer or not? But once the cancer is a hit, that's when it becomes a diagnostic or a prognostic tool where pathologists then use it to grade or stage the cancer. But so you can imagine close to 1.5 million men in North America alone are biopsied per year. And each biopsy can, like in terms of the cost and treatment after, could go all the way up to $3,000 to $4,000. But this is, imagine you go through this process and then they tell you, oh, you don't have cancer. So it was just.
It's so confusing, you know.
Yeah.
Talk about, they say, with this, you got to do this, you got that other person. No, with a biomarker, that's a fluid. From the urine, they can pick up in the urine. If someone has prostate cancer, they can pick up a biomarker in the urine.
Yeah. So that's what we're working on right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we started from.
You avoid missing a random sample that, you know, that you missed the tumor.
Yeah.
The neural tissue. Yeah, you would avoid that by having a biomarker.
Exactly, and then of course, still as of now, they need to do biopsy. But we are saying instead of biopsy being used as a pre-screening, we want only, or at least those who have a higher chance of having cancer to be biopsied, so that the biopsy purpose is for grading the cancer, because that's the only thing that the biopsy really helps with right now. But we don't want the biopsy to continue being used as a pre-screening. So if there was a way of telling if somebody for sure has cancer, then the only biopsy is like a targeted biopsy. Still, the cancer might be missed, but at least in this case, you go in knowing, no, there ought to be cancer somewhere here. And of course, with other tools like imaging, then the chances of getting the biopsy might, the doctors would concentrate knowing that, you know, for sure there's some cancer somewhere here based on this biomarker, so we ought to find it. But as opposed to, let's see what comes out.
Yeah. You know, I think most urologists in the United States anyways, they kind of follow the PSA and then they do something if it goes up. Do you know what I mean? I think that's how it's done. Is that done that way in Europe too? Where they kind of monitor the PSA, and then if it goes up, then they start thinking of getting more invasive, getting ultrasounds, etc.
I mean, I'm not from Europe. Marco might be able to answer that, but I think it's kind of universal.
Well, he's a neurosurgeon. I'm not a urologist too, but I know.
Anyway, PSA is used even in Europe. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real controversial. I have a friend that's a urologist. He's talking about this all the time.
Yeah.
Well, his thing is highly focused ultrasound. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a diagnostic alternative.
Yeah.
To what the other biopsy, PSA, etc. And some neurologists consider it more definitive of prostate cancer, but it's kind of controversial.
Yeah, I've seen data. It's not like foolproof. It's still there, and you know, some people say it's not as any better than a biopsy. But of course, a combination of such things, like using imaging as well as like focused imaging, and if there's evidence that there's actually cancer, because you know, like with imaging, even inflammation or infection or BPH, like enlarged prostate, it's so difficult to know for sure whether the enlargement is due to cancer or it's just an enlarged prostate that tends to occur with age.
Yeah, and a lot of prostates have been taken out that were not cancer.
Yeah.
But it was too late.
Yeah.
Taken out.
We have seen situations where the whole prostate is out and then there's nothing in it, but it was taken out.
Yeah. That's a conundrum.
Yeah, it's true.
Hey, you guys, thanks a lot for coming. Thanks, Jason, and thanks, John. And
thank you.
We look forward to hearing what happens.
Thank you very much for having us, John, and inviting us.
Yeah. This is one part of medicine I know nothing about, and the technical part. When you guys were speaking, when those guys were speaking, Marco, I thought they were speaking a different language. Didn't understand. I think Ipe understood you because he's working with it, but I kind of really don't know. But it seemed like you guys had some good stuff to say. I'll send you the tape.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you,
Marco,
guys.
thanks for coming,
Nice meeting
Marco.
you, Marco.
Thank
Have a
you,
great
everyone.
day.
John, thank you guys. Have a good weekend.
Okay,
You too.
you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye.